Before we dive in, please remember that I am not a licensed financial advisor, and this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The information provided is not financial advice. Always consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions. Let me paint you a picture. You just landed your first real job, the one with a salary, benefits, the whole deal. You're excited, you're nervous, and then someone from HR hands you a stack of paperwork so thick it could stop a bullet. You're flipping through pages of tax forms, health insurance options, and direct deposit slips when you see it. A section titled, Retirement Savings Plan, for 401k enrollment. And your brain just stops. Suddenly, you're staring at a foreign language. Words like traditional, Roth, vesting schedule, target date fund. You feel a bead of sweat trickle down your forehead. What do? What most of us do. You either ignore it, telling yourself you'll figure it out later, or you randomly check a box, contribute a tiny, meaningless percentage, and pray you didn't just make a catastrophic mistake. Here's the terrifying truth. That single uninformed decision, made in a moment of confusion, could be the difference between retiring with dignity and working until you're 85. It could literally cost you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over your lifetime. The financial world has made this stuff sound complicated on purpose. For 401k, IRA, Roth IRA, it's a confusing soup of acronyms and numbers designed to make you feel like you need a PhD in economics just to get started. But what if I told you it's actually simple? So simple, in fact, that by the end of this video, you will understand this stuff better than 90% of the people you know. That's not an exaggeration. My promise to you is this. You are going to walk away from this video with a crystal clear understanding of what a 401k is, what an IRA is, how they're different, and the confidence to start building a future where you are in complete control. We are going to demystify this once and for all. We're going to turn that feeling of anxiety into a feeling of power. So let's start with the absolute basics. Forget all the jargon. I want you to think of your retirement savings as a long, epic journey, like hiking a massive mountain. And to get to the top, a comfortable retirement, you need a backpack to carry your supplies, which in this case is your money. A 401k and an IRA are not investments themselves. They are the backpacks. They are special types of accounts that hold your investments and give them incredible, tax-advantaged superpowers to help them grow faster. Let's talk about the first backpack, the one you see in that HR paperwork, the 401k. What a weird name, right? 4-0-1k. It sounds like a droid from Star Wars. The name actually comes from the specific section of the U.S. Internal Revenue Code that created it. Super boring, I know. But here's all you really need to remember. A 401k is a retirement backpack that is offered by your employer. You can't just go out and get a 401k on your own. It is a workplace benefit, a perk, just like health insurance or paid time off. Your company sets it up and you choose whether or not to participate. Money is taken directly out of your paycheck, before you even have a chance to see it or spend it on late-night pizza, and it goes straight into your 401k backpack. This is called an employee contribution. It's automatic, which is fantastic because it forces you to save without relying on willpower. But here is where the 401k becomes an absolute, undisputed, must-have financial tool. It's the closest thing to magic in the world of personal finance. It's a little concept called the employer match. This is the single most important thing you need to understand. Many companies, as a way to attract and keep good employees, will offer to match your contributions up to a certain percentage. This is not a trick. It is not a scam. It is literally free money. Let me say that again so it sinks in. It is free money. Here's how it works. A common company match is something like 100% match on the first 6%. That sounds like corporate jargon, so let's translate it into English. It means your company is saying, hey, for every single dollar you put into your 401k, up to 6% of your total salary, we will put in $1 too. For free. Let's use some real numbers. Imagine you make $60,000 a year. You decide to contribute 6% of your salary to your 401k. 6% of $60,000 is $3,600 a year, or about $300 a month. Because you put in $3,600, your company, holding up their end of the bargain, takes another $3,600 of their own money and deposits it directly into your account. Poof! You save $3,600, but your account balance is now $7,200. You have instantly earned a 100% return on your investment. Find me another investment on planet Earth that guarantees you a 100% return risk-free on day one. You can't. It doesn't exist anywhere else. Not contributing enough to get your full employer match is, without a doubt, the biggest financial mistake a young person can make. It is like walking into your boss's office at the end of the year, seeing a pile of cash on their desk with your name on it, and saying, "Nah, you can keep it." You would never do that. But millions of Americans do it every single year simply because they don't understand how this works. So, rule number 1, the cardinal rule of retirement saving. If your company offers a match, you must, I repeat, must contribute at least enough to get the full match. No excuses. Sell your plasma, cancel Netflix, eat ramen for a month, do whatever it takes. This is non-negotiable for your financial future. It's a pay raise you are giving yourself. Now, these 401k backpacks come in 2 main flavors: traditional and Roth. This is another point where people get tripped up, but it's simpler than it sounds. It all comes down to one question. When do you want to pay taxes? Now or later? With a traditional 401k, the money you contribute is pre-tax. This means if you make $60,000 and you contribute $6,000, the IRS only sees you as having made $54,000 for the year. Your contribution lowers your taxable income today, which means you pay less in taxes today. Feels good. You get an immediate tax break. Your money then grows in the account over the decades, completely untouched by taxes. But there's no free lunch. When you retire decades from now and start taking money out of that account, every single dollar you withdraw will be taxed as regular income. You pay the taxes later. The other flavor is the Roth 401k. This is the exact opposite. With a Roth, you contribute post-tax money. So, you make your $60,000, you pay your normal income taxes on it, and then your contribution goes into the account. There's no immediate tax break. Your taxable income for the year is still $60,000. Doesn't feel as good in the short term, but here is the beautiful part. That money grows for decades, and when you retire and start taking it out, it is all 100% completely gloriously tax-free. The growth, the principal, all of it. You paid your taxes up front, so the government can't touch a penny of it in the future. So which one is better? Traditional or Roth? This is a huge debate, but here's a simple rule of thumb for beginners. If you believe you are in a lower tax bracket now than you will be in the future, which is true for most young people at the start of their careers, then the Roth 401k often makes more sense. Pay the taxes now while your tax rate is relatively low, and let all that future growth be tax-free when you're likely in a higher tax bracket. If you're a high earner now and expect to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement, the traditional 401k and its upfront tax deduction can be more attractive. The key takeaway is that the 401k is an incredible tool, primarily because of that employer match. It's an employer-sponsored backpack for your journey. But what if your job doesn't offer a 401k? What if you're self-employed? Or what if you're already getting your full employer match, and you want to save even more? This is where our second backpack comes into play. The one you get for yourself. This is the IRA. IRA stands for Individual Retirement Arrangement. And that first word is the most important one, individual. This backpack isn't tied to your boss, your company, or your job title. It's yours. You own it. You control it. If you quit your job, get laid off, or decide to become a professional street magician, this backpack stays on your back. It's yours forever. Think of it this way, your 401k is like the company car. It's great, it gets you around, and your company might even help pay for the gas. But if you leave the company, you have to give back the keys. An IRA is the car you buy yourself. It's parked in your own garage. You choose the make, the model, the color, and nobody can take it away from you. So how do you get one? You don't ask your HR department. You don't fill out a form at work. You go out and get it yourself. You walk into what you can think of as a financial supermarket. Places like Fidelity, Vanguard, or Charles Schwab. These are called brokerage firms. You walk in, either literally or online, and say, "I'd like to open an IRA." It's often as easy as opening a regular bank account. But this is where it gets really interesting. When you go to pick out your personal IRA backpack, they don't just have one model on the shelf. They have 2 main versions sitting side by side. And they look almost identical. But they have one profound, game-changing difference that could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to you over your lifetime. These 2 versions are the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA. Understanding the difference between these 2 is probably the single most important financial decision a young person can make. Get this right, and your future self will want to build a statue in your honor. So what's the difference? It all comes down to one simple question. When do you want to pay your taxes? Do you want to pay them now, or do you want to pay them later? Let's use an analogy. Imagine your retirement savings are a giant 40-year-long party. The government, your friendly Uncle Sam, wants to get his cut. He's going to charge you admission, a tax, for attending this party. But he gives you a choice. Option A is the traditional IRA. With the traditional IRA, Uncle Sam says, "Hey, you look great. Go on in, have a good time. Don't worry about the cover charge tonight. We'll settle up at the end of the night when you're cashing out." So, you get to walk right into the party for free. The money you put into a traditional IRA is often tax-deductible today. This means if you make $60,000 a year and you put $6,000 into a traditional IRA, the government only taxes you as if you made $54,000. It lowers your tax bill right now, which feels awesome. It's an immediate reward. But, and this is a huge but, when you're 65 and the party's over and you go to take your money out, Uncle Sam is waiting for you at the door. He's got a clipboard and a calculator, and he's going to tax every single dollar you pull out as regular income. The initial money, the growth, the profits, all of it gets taxed. Option B is the Roth IRA. With the Roth IRA, Uncle Sam stops you at the door. He says, "All right, before you go in, you've got to pay the cover charge now, based on what you're earning today." So, you pay your taxes on the money before it goes into your Roth IRA. If you put $6,000 in, it's $6,000 of your post-tax take-home pay. There's no immediate tax break. It might even feel like a little bit of a sting. But here's the magic. Once you're inside the party, everything is free. Every drink, every snack, every bit of fun you have for the next 40 years is on the house. When you go to leave at age 65, Uncle Sam just waves you through. "You're all paid up," he says. "Have a great night." Every single penny you withdraw from a Roth IRA in retirement, the initial contributions, the decades of compound growth, all of it is 100% completely gloriously tax-free. Let's say that again because it is so important. With a Roth IRA, if you put in $100,000 over your career and it grows into $1 million, you can pull out that entire $1 million in retirement and not pay a single cent in federal income tax on it. It is all yours. So which one do you choose? The traditional, where you get a tax break now but pay taxes later. Or the Roth, where you pay taxes now but get everything tax-free later. The answer depends entirely on a bet you're making about your future self. You have to ask yourself, do I think I'll be in a higher or a lower tax bracket in the future than I am today? Let's think about that. If you are a 24-year-old just starting your career, making say $55,000 a year, where do you think your income will be in 30 years? Hopefully it's going to be a lot higher, right? You'll get promotions, change jobs, become more valuable. You're probably in one of the lowest tax brackets you'll ever be in for the rest of your life. For you, it makes a ton of sense to pay the cover charge now while it's cheap. Pay the taxes now while you're in a low bracket, and then let all that money grow and grow, completely sheltered from your future higher tax rates. For most young people, the Roth IRA is an absolute slam dunk. You are paying tax on the seed, not the harvest. But what if you're a 55-year-old surgeon at the peak of your career, making $400,000 a year? You're in a very high tax bracket right now. You're looking forward to retirement, where you plan to relax, travel, and live on maybe $100,000 a year from your savings. Your income is going to drop significantly. For you, it makes more sense to take the tax deduction now, when it's most valuable because your tax rate is so high. You use the traditional IRA to lower your massive tax bill today, and you'll happily pay the taxes in retirement when you're in a much lower bracket. So, the traditional IRA is generally for people who believe their income, and thus their tax rate will be lower in retirement. The Roth IRA is for people who believe their income and tax rate will be higher in retirement. It's a strategic bet on your own success. And frankly, I hope you're all making the kind of bet where you believe you'll be in a higher tax bracket later in life. That's a good goal to have. Now, just like the 401k, the government puts a limit on how much you can stuff into your IRA backpack each year. This is called the contribution limit. For 2024, that limit is $7,000 for people under 50. It's not a huge amount, but over 30 or 40 years, it can grow into a mountain of money, especially if it's growing tax-free in a Roth. This limit changes over time, usually creeping up every few years to account for inflation, so it's good to check what the current limit is each year. So now we have a clearer picture. We have the 401k, the backpack our employer gives us, hopefully with a match, that's free money. And now we have the IRA, the backpack we get for ourselves, which comes in two flavors, traditional with a tax break now and Roth with a tax break later. Many people have both. A common strategy is to first contribute to your 401k up to the point where you get the full employer match. You never ever walk away from that free money. After you've secured the match, many financial experts suggest you then switch your focus to funding your IRA, because you often have more control and better investment choices in an IRA than in a company 401k plan. Once you've maxed out your IRA for the year, if you still have money you want to save for retirement, you can go back and put more into your 401k. But this brings up a massive fundamental question we've been ignoring. We've spent all this time talking about these amazing backpacks, the 401k and the IRA. We've talked about their tax advantages, their contribution limits, the difference between traditional and Roth. But we haven't talked about the most important part. What do you actually put inside the backpacks? Because opening a 401k or an IRA and just putting cash in it is like buying a state-of-the-art hiking backpack for a trip to Everest and then filling it with packing peanuts. It's useless. The container is special, but it's what you put inside that actually powers your journey to retirement. The money in these accounts isn't meant to sit there like it does in a savings account. It's meant to be invested. It's meant to go to work for you, to generate growth, to compound over decades into a fortune. So you've chosen your backpack. You've decided whether to pay the cover charge now or later. But what do you actually pack for the journey? What do you fill these accounts with? Stocks? Bonds? Mutual funds? What are those things and how do you choose? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's where most people get paralyzed. They hear this alphabet soup of financial jargon, stocks, bonds, ETFs, mutual funds, and their eyes glaze over. They figure it's too complicated, something only Wall Street wizards in expensive suits can understand. But that is a lie. This is simpler than you think. And to prove it, let's forget about Wall Street. Let's go to the grocery store. Imagine your 401k or your IRA is in a backpack. It's a shopping cart. That's all it is. A special tax-advantaged shopping cart. But a cart is useless until you fill it. The investments, the stocks, the bonds, the funds, those are the items on the shelves. Your job is to decide what to put in your cart for your long journey to retirement. Let's start with the most famous item on the shelves: stocks. When you buy a stock, you are buying a tiny slice of a company. Think about it. You use an iPhone? You can buy a share of Apple stock and literally own a piece of the company that makes it. You order everything from Amazon? You can buy a share of Amazon and own a piece of that logistics empire. You are not a customer anymore. You are an owner. A part owner. If that company does well, if it invents a new world-changing product, expands its business, and makes huge profits, the value of your little slice goes up. That's how people build incredible wealth. They bought a small slice of a company that became a giant. The flip side, of course, is that if the company does poorly, if it makes a bad decision, gets out-compete, or even goes bankrupt, the value of your slice can shrink or even disappear entirely. Can go to zero. This makes stocks the high-octane fuel of the investment world. The potential for growth is enormous, but so is the risk. Putting all your money into a single stock is like betting your entire retirement on a single racehorse. If it wins, you're set for life. If it stumbles, you lose everything. For most of us, that's a gamble we can't afford to take. So what's the alternative? Let's walk over to the next aisle in our supermarket. This is the bond aisle. It's a lot less flashy, a lot quieter. If buying a stock is like becoming an owner of the grocery store, buying a bond is like becoming the bank for the grocery store. You aren't buying a slice of the company. You are simply lending the company or a government money. They might need the loan to build a new factory, or for a city to build a new bridge. In exchange for your loan, they make you a promise. They promise to pay you back your original loan in full on a specific date, say 10 years from now. And along the way, they promise to pay you interest like a little thank you payment, maybe twice a year. It's predictable. It's stable. The chances of a huge, established company or especially the US government failing to pay back their loan are incredibly small. So bonds are much safer than stocks. But here's the trade-off. Your potential for growth is capped. You'll get your interest payments and your original money back, but that's it. You don't get to share in the company's explosive growth. You lent the local pizza shop money for a new oven. You don't get a piece of the profits when they become a national franchise. You're the lender, not the owner. So we have high-risk, high-growth stocks on one side and low-risk, low-growth bonds on the other. For decades, people thought these were their only two choices. Pick individual companies to bet on, or play it super safe with loans. It was stressful, time-consuming, and incredibly difficult to do well. It felt like you had to choose between being a gambler or a tortoise. But then, a revolutionary idea changed everything. It's the most important aisle in the entire supermarket for beginners. This is the mutual fund and ETF aisle. Instead of trying to pick out individual ingredients for your retirement meal, one apple from this bin, one orange from that one, what if you could just buy a pre-packaged basket with hundreds of different items already in it? That is a mutual fund. A mutual fund is a giant pool of money, collected from thousands and thousands of investors just like you. A professional manager takes that giant pool of money and buys a huge diversified collection of investments. So, when you put, say, $100 into a mutual fund, you're not buying one stock. You're buying a tiny sliver of everything the fund owns. Your $100 might be spread across 500 different stocks, or a mix of 1,000 stocks and bonds. Suddenly, the failure of one company doesn't matter as much. Remember our single racehorse? With a mutual fund, you're not betting on one horse. You're betting on every horse in the race. A few will do poorly, but many will do okay, and a few will do spectacularly well, and it all averages out. This is the single most important concept in investing: diversification. Do not put all of your eggs in one basket. Mutual funds are like buying 1,000 baskets that are already filled with one egg each. Now, you might also see something called an ETF or exchange-traded fund. For a beginner, think of it as a close cousin to the mutual fund. They both offer diversification. The main difference is how they trade. Mutual funds price once at the end of the day, while ETFs can be bought and sold all day long like stocks. But the core benefit, instant diversification, is the same. So the problem is solved, right? Just pick a mutual fund and you're good? Well, this is where the story gets even more interesting. For a long time, mutual funds were all actively managed. This meant you were paying a highly paid fund manager, that professional shopper in our analogy, to use their expertise to pick the stocks they thought would be winners. They would try to beat the market. And for this service they charged significant fees. But in the 1970s, a man named John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, came along with a radical, almost heretical idea. He looked at the data and saw a startling truth. Over the long run, the vast majority of these brilliant, high-paid professional managers failed. They failed to beat the market. After you subtracted their fees, most of them actually did worse. So Bogle asked a simple question: what if, instead of trying to beat the market, you just bought the market? Instead of paying a professional shopper to find the 10 best, most exotic fruits in the store, what if you could buy a single basket that held a tiny piece of every single fruit in the entire store for a fraction of the cost? This was the birth of the index fund. An index fund is a type of mutual fund or ETF that doesn't try to pick winners. It is passively managed. It has a simple, robotic goal: to own all the stocks in a specific market index like the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is just a list of the 500 largest, most influential public companies in the United States. When you buy a share of an S&P 500 index fund, you instantly become a part owner in Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Johnson & Johnson, and hundreds more. You are no longer betting on a single company. You are betting on the long-term success and innovation of the entire American economy. And because there's no genius manager to pay, no big research team to fund, the fees for index funds are incredibly low. This is a huge deal. Over decades, high fees can devour a massive chunk of your retirement savings, like a colony of termites eating away at the foundation of your house. Low fees mean more of your money stays in your pocket, working for you. This simple, powerful idea, buying the whole market through a low-cost index fund, has been called one of the most important financial innovations of the 20th century. It took the power out of the hands of Wall Street elites and gave it to ordinary people. It proved that a simple, disciplined strategy could outperform the vast majority of so-called experts. So now you know the main items on the shelf. Stocks are slices of ownership: high risk, high reward. Bonds are loans, low risk, low reward. And mutual funds, especially low-cost index funds, are baskets that give you instant diversification, allowing you to bet on the whole market instead of just one company. The choice seems obvious then, right? Just put 100% of your money in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund and let it ride for 40 years. For a young person, that's not the worst strategy in the world. But is it the best? What happens when the market crashes, like it always does from time to time? What if you're not 25 years old with decades to recover? What if you're 55 and need that money in 10 years? Does putting everything in stocks still make sense? How do you balance the safety of bonds with the growth of stocks? How much of each should you have in your cart? This is the single most important question in all of investing, and it's the one that paralyzes most people into doing nothing at all. The fear of getting it wrong feels so massive that the default choice becomes stuffing cash under a mattress, or worse, leaving it in the default cash equivalent option in your 401k, earning next to nothing. But what if I told you there's a simple, decades-old rule of thumb that can get you 90% of the way there in about 10 seconds? It's not perfect, but it is a fantastic starting point that cuts through all the noise. It's called the Rule of 110. It's incredibly simple. You take the number 110 and you subtract your age. The number you get is the percentage of your retirement savings that should be in the stock market. The rest? That goes into the safer, more stable world of bonds. Let's see it in action. Imagine a 25-year-old, let's call her Sarah, just starting her career. She uses the rule. 110 minus her age, 25, equals 85. This rule of thumb suggests Sarah should have her retirement portfolio invested with 85% in stocks and 15% in bonds. Why so aggressive? Because Sarah's greatest asset isn't her money, it's her time. She has a 40-year time horizon until retirement. If the stock market crashes by 40% next year, it's a non-event for her. In fact, it's a good thing. It means every new dollar she contributes from her paycheck is buying stocks when they're on a massive discount. She has 4 decades for that money to recover and grow. She can afford to put her foot on the gas pedal because she has a very, very long road ahead of her. Now let's fast forward 20 years. Let's meet David, who is 45. He's in the middle of his career. He's accumulated a nice nest egg. He runs the numbers. 110 minus his age, 45, equals 65. The guideline suggests he should have 65% of his portfolio in stocks and 35% in bonds. Notice the shift? He's pulled back on the risk. He still needs his money to grow for the next 20 years, so a majority is still in stocks, the engine of growth. But now he's got a significant chunk of money he wants to protect. That 35% in bonds acts as a shock absorber. If the market takes a nosedive, his bond allocation will likely hold its value or even go up, cushioning the blow to his overall portfolio. He's moved from pure pedal-to-the-metal growth to a phase of growth and preservation. Finally, let's look at Linda, who is 60 years old. Retirement is just around the corner. She does the math. 110 minus 60 equals 50. Her suggested allocation is 50% stocks and 50% bonds. A classic balanced portfolio. Why the dramatic shift to safety? Because Linda's time horizon is now very short. She can't afford a massive 2008-style crash right before she plans to start living off this money. A huge drop in her portfolio could permanently alter her retirement plans. The 50% in bonds is there to provide stability and income, to ensure that no matter what the stock market is doing, a huge portion of her life savings is insulated from that chaos. Her goal is no longer about hitting home runs. It's about protecting the lead she's already built. Now, you might have heard of this as the Rule of 100, or even the Rule of 120. The concept is the same. Using 110 or 120 is a more modern take, reflecting the fact that we're living longer and thus have slightly longer time horizons. The exact number isn't magic. The principle is what matters. The younger you are, the more risk you can take. The older you are, the more you should focus on protecting what you've built. This is a concept called your asset allocation, and it is, without a doubt, more important than any individual hot stock you could ever pick. But it also sounds like a lot of work, right? Do you have to log into your 401k every year on your birthday and manually sell some stocks and buy some bonds to readjust your percentages? For decades, the answer was yes. But then, the financial world invented something brilliant. Something that does all of this for you automatically without you ever having to think about it again. It's arguably the single greatest invention for the average, hands-off retirement investor. It's called a target date fund, and you've almost certainly seen one. Their names usually sound something like Retirement 2055 Fund or Target 2060 Fund. So what is it? A target date fund is an all-in-one, set-it-and-forget-it investment that holds a mix of stocks and bonds for you. But here's the magic. It automatically and gradually changes that mix over time. It puts the Rule of 110 on autopilot. Here's how it works. You pick the fund with the year and the name that's closest to when you plan to retire. Let's go back to 25-year-old Sarah. She plans to retire around the year 2065. So, she would select a Target 2065 fund. When she invests in that fund, it will automatically be very aggressive, maybe 90% stocks and 10% bonds because her retirement date is so far away. It knows she needs to be in growth mode. She doesn't have to do anything else. As the years go by, the fund managers behind the scenes will slowly, gradually, and automatically start selling off some of the stocks and buying more bonds. By the time Sarah's 45 years old in the year 2045, her 2065 fund might have naturally shifted to be 65% stocks and 35% bonds. And by the time she's actually in the year 2065, the fund will be at its most conservative, with a heavy allocation to bonds and other stable investments to protect her money during retirement. It's like a smart thermostat for your portfolio. You just set the temperature, your retirement date, and it handles all the adjustments to keep you comfortable along the way. For the vast majority of people, especially beginners who don't want to become investment gurus, the target date fund is the simplest, most effective way to get started. It solves the asset allocation problem in one click. It ensures you're never taking too much risk when you're old, or too little risk when you're young. Inside your 401k or your IRA, you simply find the target date fund with your year, put all your money into that one single fund, and you're done. You've just implemented a sophisticated, age-appropriate investment strategy without needing to know a single thing about the stock market. Now, are there downsides? Sure. Purists will say they have slightly higher fees than building your own portfolio from scratch, and that they're a one-size-fits-all solution that doesn't know your personal tolerance for risk. And they're right. But for someone starting from zero, the benefits of diversification and automatic rebalancing far outweigh the slightly higher cost. It's the difference between a pre-packaged, nutritionally balanced meal kit and going to the farm to grow the vegetables yourself. One is way easier and guarantees you get a good result. So we've figured out the strategy. We know we need a mix of stocks and bonds, and we have two ways to get there. The do-it-yourself rule of 110, or the automated all-in-one target date fund. The big scary question of what do I buy is basically solved. But when you log into your 401k or IRA account, ready to put this plan into action, you're hit with another wall of confusion. You don't just see a button that says stocks. You see a list of cryptic names: Large Cap Value Fund, International Growth Fund, S&P 500 Index Fund, Small Cap Blend ETF. What on earth is the difference between a mutual fund and an ETF? What is an index fund? And why does everyone from Warren Buffett to Jack Bogle say it's the single best investment for most Americans? And most importantly, how do you spot the hidden fees in these funds that can secretly devour hundreds of thousands of dollars from your retirement account over your lifetime without you ever noticing? To answer that, let's turn to one of the most successful investors of all time, Warren Buffett. For years, Buffett has given the same advice to the average person. He says that for most people, the best thing to do is to own a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. What on earth is that? Let's break it down. An index is just a list of stocks that represents a slice of the market. The S&P 500 is the big one. It's a list of the 500 largest, most established companies in the United States. Think Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Johnson & Johnson. It's a who's who of American business. An S&P 500 index fund is simply an investment vehicle that buys and holds all 500 of those companies for you. It doesn't try to pick winners or losers. It doesn't have a slick, high-paid manager trying to outsmart the market. It just buys the entire haystack instead of trying to find the needle. By owning this one single fund, you are instantly diversified across the most powerful sector of the American economy. Its goal is simple: to match the performance of the market, not beat it. And historically, the U.S. stock market has gone up over the long term. This approach is simple, it's powerful, and most importantly, it is incredibly cheap. But here's the problem. When you open your 401k for the first time, you probably won't see a big flashing sign that says, "Buy this Warren Buffett approved fund." Instead, you're more likely to be pushed towards something called a target date fund. A target date fund sounds like a brilliant idea on the surface. It has a year in its name, like the Freedom 2060 Fund or the Retirement 2055 Fund. The idea is you pick the fund with the year closest to when you plan to retire. If you're 25 and plan to retire around age 65, you'd pick a 2065 fund. This fund then manages everything for you. When you're young and far from retirement, it invests aggressively, mostly in stocks, to maximize your growth. As you get closer to that target year 2065, the fund automatically behind the scenes starts shifting your money out of risky stocks and into safer investments like bonds. This is called a glide path. It's the ultimate set-it-and-forget-it option. You put your money in, and the fund does all the work of rebalancing your portfolio until the day you retire. It sounds perfect, right? Simple, it's automated, and it takes all the guesswork out of investing. And for millions of Americans, it's a perfectly acceptable, if not ideal, option. It's certainly better than not investing at all, but this convenience comes at a hidden cost, a potentially massive cost. And this brings us to the single most important concept you need to understand to protect your retirement savings: fees. Every fund you invest in, whether it's in a 401k or an IRA, charges a fee for managing your money. This fee is expressed as a percentage, and it's called the expense ratio. The expense ratio is the silent killer of wealth. It's a phantom menace that works against you every single second of every single day. And it is so small on paper that most people completely ignore it. And that is a catastrophic mistake. Let me show you why. An expense ratio of 1% sounds tiny. It's just 1 penny for every dollar invested, right? How much harm can that do? A low-cost S&P 500 index fund, the kind Warren Buffett recommends, might have an expense ratio of 0.04%. The difference between 1% and 0.04% seems like financial nitpicking. It's not. Over your lifetime, that difference can be the price of a house. It can be the difference between retiring comfortably at 60 versus working until you're 70. Let's imagine two friends, David and Mike. They're both 25 years old, and they both decide to invest $25,000 for their retirement. They're not going to add another penny. They're just going to let this money grow for the next 40 years. They both invest in funds that earn, on average, a 7% annual return before fees. The only difference is the fee. David does his research. He finds a low-cost S&P 500 index fund inside his account with an expense ratio of just 0.04%. So his net return each year is 6.96%. Mike, on the other hand, clicks the easy button. He puts his money into a target date fund that his 401k provider recommended. It looks good, it sounds safe, but buried deep in the paperwork is its expense ratio: 1.04%. It's a full percentage point higher than David's. So Mike's net return each year is only 5.96%. 1%. No big deal, he thinks. Let's fast forward 40 years to their retirement party. David, with his 0.04% fee, watches his $25,000 grow into roughly $375,000. Not bad at all. He's thrilled. Now it's Mike's turn. How did that seemingly insignificant 1% fee affect his investment? His $25,000, earning just 1 percentage point less each year, grew to only $250,000. Let that sink in. David has $125,000 more than Mike. $125,000. That money didn't just disappear. It was systematically siphoned out of Mike's account, year after year, by that tiny 1% fee, and transferred directly into the pockets of the financial company managing his fund. Mike worked for that money. He saved it. He took the risk. But the fund management company took a third of his potential earnings just for putting him in a prepackaged product. Now imagine this effect not on a single $25,000 investment, but on the hundreds of thousands of dollars you'll be contributing over your entire career. The fees could devour $200,000, $300,000, maybe even $500,000 of your potential nest egg. This is happening right now, inside millions of 401k accounts across America, and most people have no idea. So how do you find this number? How do you spot the monster hiding in your account? You have to do a little digging. Log into your 401k account online. Find the section that shows your current investments or your fund choices. For each fund, there will be a link to a document called a prospectus or a fund fact sheet. This is the legal document that details everything about the fund. It's usually long, boring, and filled with legal jargon, but you are looking for one specific line item. It might be called expense ratio, total annual fund operating expenses, or management fee. Find that number. Write it down for every single fund you are invested in. A good rule of thumb? Anything under 0.1% is generally considered very low cost. Anything from 0.1% to 0.5% is reasonable. But if you see a number north of 0.75%, and especially if you see a number over 1%, alarm bells should be going off. You are very likely paying way too much. Target date funds, especially in smaller 401k plans, can often have these higher fees. The very product designed for simplicity and safety could be the one quietly sabotaging your financial future. This is the fundamental reason why understanding the investment choices inside your 401k is so critical. You might have a fantastic plan with a great company match, but if all your available fund choices have high expense ratios, it's like trying to run a race with weights tied to your ankles. You're putting in all the effort, but those fees are constantly holding you back. This is also where the IRA can have a massive advantage. Remember how an IRA gives you nearly unlimited investment choices? That means you can almost always find a low-cost index fund with a rock-bottom expense ratio, like the ones David chose. You aren't limited to the dozen or so funds your employer pre-selected for you. So now you know the secret. You know to look for the expense ratio. You know that a difference of a single percentage point can mean a six-figure difference in your final retirement balance. You're armed with the knowledge that can save you a fortune. But this raises a terrifying question. What if you just checked your account and you discovered that you, like Mike, are in a high-fee fund? What if the funds your employer offers are all expensive? Are you just stuck, forced to hand over a massive chunk of your life savings to Wall Street? Or is there a way to fight back? The answer is no, you are not stuck. There is absolutely a way to fight back. There is another path, a powerful tool that puts you, not your employer, in the driver's seat of your financial future. It's the secret weapon for anyone trapped in a 401k with mediocre, expensive funds. It's called an IRA. That stands for Individual Retirement Arrangement. And the most important word in that name is individual. Unlike a 401k, which is tied to your job and managed by whomever your employer chooses, an IRA is yours and yours alone. You don't need an employer to open one. You can be a full-time employee, a freelancer, a gig worker, or even unemployed with some taxable income for the year. You can walk into, or more likely log onto the website of a major brokerage firm, think Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, and open an IRA in about 15 minutes. It is your personal private retirement account, a fortress for your savings that you control completely. And this is where the magic happens. Remember Mike's 401k? He had a list of about 20 different mutual funds to choose from, and that was it. He was stuck in their little walled garden, forced to pick from a menu that his employer and their 401k provider decided on. And as we saw, that menu was filled with expensive, underperforming options. With an IRA, the walls come down. The menu isn't 20 funds long. It's practically infinite. When you open an IRA at a major brokerage, you gain access to a breathtaking universe of investment choices. You want that ultra-low-cost S&P 500 index fund with a 0.03% expense ratio? You got it. You want to invest in a fund that tracks the entire world stock market? No problem. You want to buy individual shares of Apple or Amazon or Tesla? You can do that too. You can invest in thousands of different mutual funds, exchange-traded funds, or ETFs, individual stocks, bonds. The freedom is staggering. You are no longer at the mercy of your HR department's poor decisions. You are the one in charge. You can escape the high-fee trap and build a portfolio of world-class, low-cost investments that work for you, not for some Wall Street fund manager. This single fact, the freedom of choice, is arguably the most powerful advantage of an IRA. It's the escape hatch from a bad 401k. But it gets even better. Because just like with cars, IRAs come in different models designed for different needs. The two main types you need to know about are the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA. Understanding the difference between these two is one of the most important financial decisions you will ever make, because it all comes down to one thing: taxes. Specifically, when you want to pay them. Let's start with the traditional IRA. Think of this as the pay taxes later plan. When you contribute money to a traditional IRA, you often get an immediate reward, a tax deduction. Let's say you're in the 22% tax bracket and you contribute $5,000 to a traditional IRA. You can deduct that $5,000 from your income for the year. This means you don't pay that 22% tax on that money today. That's an instant $1,100 that stays in your pocket instead of going to the IRS. It's a powerful incentive to save. Inside the account, your money grows tax-deferred. This is a fancy way of saying the government doesn't touch it while it's growing. You don't pay taxes on dividends or capital gains year after year. The money is left alone to compound in peace. The catch? The taxman always gets his due. When you retire and start pulling money out of your traditional IRA, every single dollar you withdraw is treated as regular income and is taxed at whatever your income tax rate is at that time. You get a tax break now in exchange for paying taxes later. Now let's look at its sibling, the Roth IRA. The Roth flips the entire script. This is the pay taxes now plan. When you contribute money to a Roth IRA, you use post-tax dollars. That means it's money from your paycheck that you've already paid income tax on. Because of this, you get no upfront tax deduction. Contributing $5,000 to a Roth won't lower your tax bill today 1 single cent. And for a long time, this made people think the traditional IRA was the obvious winner. Why pay taxes now if you can pay them later? But they were missing the spectacular grand finale. Just like the traditional IRA, your money inside a Roth grows completely sheltered from taxes. No taxes on dividends, no capital gains taxes. But here is the life-changing difference. When you reach retirement age and start taking money out, every single penny, your original contributions and all the decades of growth, is 100%, completely and totally tax-free. Let that sink in. Imagine you contribute to a Roth IRA for 40 years. Your money grows and grows, maybe turning $100,000 of your contributions into $1 million. When you retire, you can withdraw that entire $1 million and the IRS cannot legally touch a dime of it. It is all yours. It's like prepaying the taxes on the seed, and then getting to keep the entire harvest for free. This is, without a doubt, one of the greatest wealth-building tools ever created by the US government for the average person. So, which one is better? The traditional with its upfront tax break, or the Roth with its tax-free withdrawals? The answer depends entirely on a bet you're making with yourself. You are betting on whether your income tax rate will be higher or lower in retirement than it is today. If you believe your tax rate will be lower in retirement, maybe you're a high earner right now at the peak of your career and you expect to live a simpler life on less income later on, then the traditional IRA makes a lot of sense. You take the big tax deduction now when you're in a high tax bracket, and pay the taxes later when you're in a lower one. You pay the tax bill when it's smaller. But what if you believe your tax rate will be higher in retirement? This is a very real possibility for many people. If you're young and just starting your career, your income will likely rise significantly over the next few decades, pushing you into higher tax brackets. Or, you might just believe that US tax rates in general are going to have to go up in the future to pay for government programs. If that's what you believe, the Roth IRA is a brilliant move. You pay the taxes now while your rate is relatively low, and then you get to watch your money grow and withdraw it later, completely immune from any future tax hikes. You've locked in your tax rate on that money forever. It's a form of tax insurance. Now there are some rules. The government doesn't just let you stuff unlimited cash into these amazing accounts. For 2024, the maximum you can contribute to all of your IRAs combined, whether traditional or Roth, is $7,000 per year if you're under age 50, or $8,000 if you're 50 or older. This is much lower than the 401k limit, which is a key difference we'll come back to. And there's one more critical catch specifically for the Roth IRA. It has income limits. The government sees the Roth as such a good deal that they don't want high-income earners taking too much advantage of it. For 2024, if you're a single person earning more than $161,000, or a married couple earning more than $240,000, you are legally prohibited from contributing directly to a Roth IRA. The government essentially says, sorry, you make too much money for this amazing tax break. So now the picture is getting clearer. On one hand, we have the 401k sponsored by your employer. Its superpower is the potential for a company match, free money, and a very high contribution limit. Its weakness is often a limited selection of high-fee investment funds. On the other hand, we have the IRA, which you open on your own. Its superpower is freedom of choice, allowing you to invest in almost anything, especially low-cost funds, and it offers the incredible tax-free growth of the Roth option. Its weakness is a much lower annual contribution limit and potential income restrictions. They are two different tools, each with incredible strengths and distinct weaknesses. They are the twin pillars of the American retirement system. This creates the single most important question a beginner investor faces. Where do I put my money first? Do you prioritize the 401k to grab that free company match even if the funds are terrible? Or do you prioritize the IRA to take advantage of superior, low-cost investments and the tax-free growth of a Roth? How do you strategically combine these two accounts to build the ultimate retirement saving machine? Getting this order of operations right is the foundation of a successful financial life. Getting it wrong can literally cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. And that is exactly what we're going to break down next. So let's build the blueprint. Think of this as the official, non-negotiable financial order of operations. A step-by-step guide to putting your dollars to work in the most efficient way possible. Step 1. This is the easiest and most important decision you will ever make. You must, under any and all circumstances, contribute enough to your 401k to get the full employer match. I don't care if you have credit card debt. I don't care if you're saving for a house. This comes first. Always. Why? Because it is the only place in the world you will ever find a guaranteed, instantaneous 100% return on your money. Let's be crystal clear about what that means. If your company offers a dollar-for-dollar match up to, say, 5% of your salary, and you contribute that 5%, they hand you another 5% for free. You put in $1, you immediately have $2. You have instantly doubled your money before it has even had a chance to be invested in a single stock or bond. There is no investment strategy on planet Earth that can compete with that. Not Bitcoin, not real estate, not some hot tech stock your cousin told you about. Nothing. Ignoring your 401k match is like your boss walking over to your desk, holding a stack of $100 bills, and you just turning your back and saying, "No thanks, I'm good." You would never do that. It's financial insanity. So before you do anything else, log into your company's HR portal and set your contribution to whatever percentage gets you the full match. Do it today. This is the bedrock of your entire financial future. Okay, you've secured the free money. What's next? This is where most people get it wrong. They think the next step is to invest more. It's not. Step 2 is to destroy your high-interest debt. I'm talking about credit card debt, personal loans, payday loans, anything with an interest rate that makes you wince. Think of this debt as anti-investing. It's a hole in the bottom of your financial boat that is actively sinking you faster than you can bail water. Here's why it's so critical to tackle this before investing another dime. The average historical return of the US stock market is around 10% per year. That's a fantastic return, but it's not guaranteed. Some years it's up 25%, some years it's down 15%. Now look at your credit card statement. What's the interest rate? 18%? 22%? Maybe even 29%? That's not a potential maybe it happens number. That is a guaranteed loss. Every single month that you carry that balance, you are paying the credit card company a king's ransom for the privilege. Paying off a credit card with a 22% interest rate is the financial equivalent of earning a 22% guaranteed, tax-free return on your money. Let me say that again. It is a 22% guaranteed tax-free return. You will not find that anywhere else. So, you take every single dollar you have after getting your 401k match, and you throw it at that high-interest debt like your life depends on it. Because financially, it kind of does. You pay it off with a vengeance until it is gone. Forever. Now we're talking. The match is secured. The soul-crushing debt is gone. You're standing on solid ground. Now, and only now, are you ready to really start building wealth. This brings us to step 3, max out a Roth IRA. Wait, what? Why an IRA? Why not just dump more money into the 401k? Because now that the free money is taken care of, we need to focus on the next most important factors: investment choice and fees. And this is where the IRA absolutely crushes the 401k. Your 401k is like a company cafeteria. They might have a few decent options, maybe a salad bar, a sandwich station, and a pizza counter. But your choices are limited to what they decide to offer you that day. An IRA, on the other hand, is like being turned loose in the world's largest supermarket with an empty shopping cart. You can buy anything. Thousands upon thousands of different stocks, bonds, ETFs, and mutual funds from countless companies. You aren't restricted to the 15 or 20 funds your employer pre-selected for you. This freedom is a superpower. It allows you to build a portfolio that is perfectly tailored to your goals and risk tolerance. But even more important than choice are the fees. This is the silent killer of wealth. Most 401k plans, especially at smaller companies, are notorious for having funds with high expense ratios. An expense ratio is a small percentage fee that the fund charges every single year. It might look tiny, maybe 0.8% or 1% or even higher. An IRA, however, gives you access to ultra-low-cost index funds and ETFs with expense ratios as low as 0.03%. You might think, who cares about 0.5%? You should. You should care a lot. Let's run the numbers. Imagine you invest $6,000 a year for 30 years. In a typical 401k fund with a 0.75% expense ratio, assuming an 8% average annual return, you'd end up with about $625,000. Not bad. But if you invested that same money in a nearly identical low-cost index fund in your IRA with a 0.05% expense ratio, you would have over $710,000. That is an $85,000 difference. $85,000 that vanished from your account and went straight into the pockets of the fund managers. All because of a tiny fee you probably never even noticed. By prioritizing the IRA, you keep that money for yourself. So, after the 401k match and after the bad debt is gone, you open a Roth IRA and you contribute to it until you hit the annual maximum limit. So what's next? You've maxed out your IRA for the year. This is a fantastic problem to have. Now we execute step 4, go back to your 401k. That's right, we're returning to the scene of the crime. You go back to that same 401k, and you increase your contributions beyond the match, pushing as close as you can to the annual 401k maximum. The logic is simple. You've already taken advantage of the IRA's superior investment choices and lower fees. Now you're just looking for more tax-advantaged space to grow your money. And the 401k is a giant, powerful bucket for doing just that. The tax deduction you get today, or the tax-free growth in a Roth 401k, is still incredibly valuable, even if the investment options inside aren't perfect. You're using it for what it's best for at this stage. Its sheer size and tax sheltering power. So to recap the core plan, step 1, 401k up to the match. Step 2, annihilate high-interest debt. Step 3, max out an IRA. Step 4, go back and max out the 401k. For 95% of people, this is the entire game plan. If you do this, you will build significant wealth. But for the high achievers out there is a step 5. This is the good problems to have tier. If you have done all of the above, you can then contribute to an HSA, a health savings account, if you have a high deductible health plan. An HSA is the undisputed duty of retirement accounts. It's triple tax advantaged. The money goes in tax-free, it grows tax-free, and it comes out tax-free for qualified medical expenses. It's like a supercharged Roth IRA. Many people use it as a stealth retirement account, paying for current medical bills out of pocket, and letting their HSA balance grow untouched for decades. And finally, if you've maxed out every single one of those tax-advantaged accounts, you open a standard taxable brokerage account and invest there. There are no special tax breaks, but there are also no contribution limits. This is where your overflow goes. Think of it like filling buckets with water. The first bucket you fill is the 401k match, because it's instantly doubled. Then you stop filling buckets and you patch the giant leaks in your boat, which is your high-interest debt. Once you're seaworthy, you fill up the ultra-flexible, low-cost IRA bucket. Once that's full, you go back and top off the giant 401k bucket. And if you're lucky enough to have water left over, it flows into the superpowered HSA bucket and the infinite-sized taxable brokerage bucket. That's it. That is the order. It's not about which account is better in a vacuum. It's about using them in the right sequence to maximize your results. So now you have the roadmap. You know exactly which account to fund and when. You have the blueprint for the financial architecture of your life. But opening an account is like buying an empty treasure chest. The real magic, the actual growth, comes from what you decide to put inside it. And choosing the right investments can feel like trying to navigate a minefield in the dark. But what if I told you that for 99% of people, the answer is shockingly beautifully simple? That is exactly what we are diving into next. So you've opened the account. You've set up your contributions. You feel that surge of pride of taking control of your future. And then you log in, and you're hit with a wall of options that looks like the control panel of a space shuttle. You see names like Aggressive Growth Stock Fund, International Small Cap Value, Intermediate Term Bond Portfolio, and your brain just shuts down. This is the moment where millions of Americans freeze. They get so overwhelmed by the fear of choosing the wrong thing that they end up choosing nothing at all, leaving their hard-earned money sitting in cash, getting eaten alive by inflation. For decades, Wall Street has made a fortune by making this seem impossibly complex. They want you to think you need a highly paid genius in a suit to navigate these treacherous waters for you. But that is a lie. The simple truth is this. The single biggest mistake you can make is trying to be clever. It's trying to pick the next big thing. You hear stories about someone who bought Amazon stock in 1998 or Tesla in 2012 and became a millionaire. And your brain thinks, I can do that. This is a trap. Trying to pick individual stocks is not investing. It's gambling. For every one person who got lucky with Tesla, there are thousands who lost their shirts on companies you've never even heard of because they went bankrupt. Even the professionals, the people who get paid millions of dollars to do this all day, every day with teams of analysts and supercomputers, even they fail to beat the market over the long term. Studies show over 90% of them fail. So what chance do you or I have spending a few hours on Google after work? The goal here isn't to hit a home run. The goal is to consistently get on base over and over for 40 years until you've won the game. So how do we do that? We do it by not trying to pick the winning stock at all. Instead, we buy all of them. Imagine the entire US stock market is one giant pizza. Trying to pick individual stocks is like trying to guess which single pepperoni slice is going to taste the best. It's a fool's errand. The simple, brilliant solution is to just buy the whole pizza. You get a little bit of everything, the good and the bad, but on average, you get the delicious, satisfying experience of the whole pie. In the investing world, this whole pizza is called an index fund. And the most famous, most effective index fund for beginners is the S&P 500 Index Fund. The name sounds complicated, but the idea is kindergarten simple. It is a single fund that automatically buys you a tiny slice of the 500 largest, most profitable companies in America. You buy one share of this fund, and you instantly own a piece of Apple, a piece of Microsoft, a piece of Amazon, Google, Johnson & Johnson, Walmart, all of them. If one company has a bad year, it's cushioned by the other 499 that are doing just fine. This is called diversification, and it is the closest thing to a free lunch in finance. It's how you protect yourself from the catastrophic risk of having all your eggs in one basket. But the true magic of the index fund, the secret ingredient that Wall Street doesn't want you to know about, is its cost. Because an index fund isn't trying to be clever, it's just passively tracking the market. It doesn't need a team of expensive managers. It's run by a computer. And because of that, the fees are microscopically low. This might be the single most important concept you learn in your entire investing journey. Let me show you why. Let's say you're looking at two funds. Fund A is an actively managed fund, the kind your bank might try to sell you. It has a manager who picks stocks, and he charges a 1% fee per year for his expertise. That's called the expense ratio. Fund B is a simple S&P 500 index fund. Its expense ratio is a tiny 0.03%. Now, you might look at that and think 1% versus 0.03%. What's the big deal? It's less than a 1% difference. That tiny difference is a financial cancer that will eat your returns alive over time. Imagine you invest $100,000. Over 30 years, assuming an average 8% return, that tiny difference in fees will cost you over $250,000. Let me repeat that. A fee that looks like pocket change will rob you of $250,000. It's the single greatest destroyer of wealth for the average investor, and it is completely avoidable. Your number one job as an investor is to keep your costs as low as humanly possible. And index funds are the ultimate weapon for doing that. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, the S&P 500 sounds great, but what about international companies? What about bonds to make my portfolio safer? That is an excellent question, and it leads us to the even simpler, even more beautiful solution, the target date fund. A target date fund is the set it and forget it nuclear option of retirement investing. It is a complete, globally diversified portfolio all wrapped up in a single fund. Here's how it works. You look at the calendar and figure out roughly what year you plan to retire. Let's say it's 2060. You simply put all of your money into a fund called a Target Date 2060 fund. That's it. You're done. Inside that one fund, a team of professionals has already created the perfect mix for someone your age. It will have US stocks, international stocks, bonds, everything you need. But here's the genius part. When you are young and far away from 2060, the fund is aggressive. It's mostly stocks designed for maximum growth. But as you get older, as you get closer and closer to that 2060 date, the fund automatically, gradually, and magically starts to shift. It sells off some of its riskier stocks and buys more stable, safer bonds. It does this year after year, without you ever having to lift a finger. It takes on risk for you when you're young and can afford it, and it protects your money for you as you get closer to needing it. It is, without a doubt, the single best choice for the vast majority of Americans who just want to save for retirement without becoming a stock market expert. So how do you find these magical funds? If you're in a 401k, you'll have a limited menu of choices provided by your employer. Scan that list. Look for the words Index Fund, S&P 500, or Target Date. You will likely find one of each. Your job is to look at the number next to expense ratio and pick the one that is the lowest. It's that simple. Don't fall for fancy names or promises of high returns. Pick the cheapest index fund or target date fund on the menu. If you're in an IRA, which you open yourself at a place like Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab, you have the entire universe of options. But your strategy is the same. These companies were built on low-cost index investing. Simply buy their S&P 500 index fund or their target date fund. The process is incredibly straightforward. For decades, the financial world has felt like an exclusive club with a secret language designed to keep normal people out. But the secret is out. The key to successful retirement investing isn't about finding a needle in a haystack. It's about buying the whole haystack for as cheap as possible, and then letting the power of time and compounding do the heavy lifting for you. So you've chosen your account, a 401k or an IRA. You've now chosen your investment, a simple low-cost index fund or a target date fund. But now you face the final critical choice. A choice that could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes over your lifetime. Do you go traditional or do you go Roth? This is the million-dollar question, and it's the one we're finally ready to answer. The entire difference between traditional and Roth boils down to a single simple question. Do you want to pay your taxes now, or do you want to pay them later? That's it. That is the fundamental choice. Every strategy, every debate, every article you read about this topic is just an attempt to answer that one question. Think of it like a bet you're making with your future self. A traditional 401k or a traditional IRA is a bet that you'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement than you are right now during your working years. A Roth 401k or a Roth IRA is the opposite bet. It's a bet that you'll be in a higher tax bracket, or at least the same one when you retire. Let's break down exactly how this bet works, starting with the old guard, the traditional account. When you contribute to a traditional 401k or IRA, you do it with pre-tax dollars. This is the magic that people love. Let's say you make $80,000 a year, and you decide to contribute $6,000 to your traditional 401k. When the IRS comes to calculate your income tax for the year, they don't look at the $80,000. They look at $74,000. That $6,000 contribution is deducted from your taxable income. It's like it vanishes. This means you pay less tax today. Your paycheck is a little bigger, or your tax refund is a little fatter. It's an immediate, tangible reward. While that money is sitting in your account, it grows tax-deferred. That's a key phrase. It means as your investments generate dividends or grow in value, you don't pay any taxes on those gains year after year. This allows your money to compound much more powerfully, without the annual drag of taxes. But there's always a but. The tax man always gets his due. The deal you made was to defer the taxes, not to escape them. When you retire and you start pulling that money out, every single dollar you withdraw is taxed as ordinary income. The $6,000 you put in? Taxed. The 50 years of growth on top of it? Taxed. If your account grew to $1 million, that entire $1 million is taxable as you withdraw it. You're essentially paying the bill you put off for decades. So the traditional path is tax break now, tax-deferred growth, and a tax bill in retirement. Now let's look at the newer, increasingly popular option, the Roth. The Roth flips the entire script. When you contribute to a Roth 401k or Roth IRA, you use after-tax dollars. Let's go back to our example. You still make $80,000 a year. You pay your income tax on the full $80,000. Then, from the money you have left over in your bank account, you contribute $6,000 to your Roth account. There is no immediate tax deduction. No instant gratification. Your taxable income for the year is still $80,000. Feels less exciting in the short term, but this is where the true power of the Roth begins to reveal itself. Just like the traditional account, your money grows, but it doesn't grow tax-deferred. It grows completely 100% tax-free. And here is the grand finale. When you retire and you start pulling that money out, every single dollar is yours to keep completely tax-free. The $6,000 you put in? Tax-free. The 50 years of incredible compounding growth on top of it? Tax-free. If your Roth account grows to $1 million, you can withdraw that entire $1 million, and you will not pay one single penny of federal income tax on it. It is all yours. The Roth path is pay taxes now, tax-free growth, and zero tax bill in retirement. To see why this is so critical, let's run a quick thought experiment. Imagine two identical twins, traditional Tim and Roth Rachel. Both are 30 years old, and both are in the 22% tax bracket. Tim decides to contribute $5,000 to his traditional 401k. Because it's pre-tax, the full $5,000 goes into his account to start growing. Rachel decides to contribute to her Roth 401k. To make an apples-to-apples comparison, she wants to have the same impact on her take-home pay as Tim. So, she has to earn about $6,410. She pays her 22% tax on that, which is about $1,410, and she's left with $5,000 to put into her Roth account. So far so good. Both have $5,000 in their accounts, and both have reduced their current spending money by the same amount. Now we fast forward 35 years. Both accounts have grown at the exact same rate and are now worth $50,000. Tim, now retired, decides to withdraw his $50,000. But wait, He has to pay taxes. Let's assume his tax rate in retirement is exactly the same as it was before. 22%. So he pays $11,000 in taxes. He walks away with $39,000 in his pocket. Now it's Rachel's turn. She withdraws her $50,000. How much tax does she pay? Zero. Absolutely nothing. She walks away with the full $50,000 in her pocket. In this scenario, Rachel came out way ahead. But why? Because they both paid a 22% tax rate. Tim paid it on the big final number. Rachel paid it on the small initial number. And that makes all the difference. This reveals the central truth. If you believe your tax rate in the future will be higher than your tax rate today, the Roth is the clear winner. But what if we change one little detail? What if Tim's tax rate in retirement drops? Maybe he's earning less, so he's in a lower bracket. Let's say his retirement tax rate is only 12%. Now, when he withdraws his $50,000, he only pays $6,000 in tax. He walks away with $44,000. That's significantly better. He's now the one who came out ahead of Rachel. This is the core of the decision. You choose traditional if you expect your income, and therefore your tax bracket, to be lower in retirement. This is the classic argument. You're in your peak earning years now, making good money. When you retire, you'll stop working, your income will fall, and you'll pay taxes at a much lower rate. You get the deduction when your tax rate is high, and you pay the tax when your rate is low. It's a brilliant strategy. You choose Roth if you expect your income and tax bracket to be higher in retirement, or even just the same. Why would this happen? Maybe you're just starting your career. You're in a low tax bracket now, but you expect your salary to grow significantly. It makes sense to pay the taxes now while your rate is low, rather than later when your rate is high. But there's another much bigger argument for the Roth. It's not about your personal income. It's about the tax rates of the entire country. The United States is currently facing enormous national debt. Historically speaking, our current income tax rates are relatively low. Many financial experts believe that it's not a question of if tax rates will go up in the future, but when and by how much. If you believe that in 20 or 30 years, tax rates for everyone will be higher just to pay for government spending, then the Roth becomes an incredibly powerful insurance policy. You're locking in today's tax rates on your retirement savings, protecting yourself from whatever Congress decides to do in the future. Having a bucket of money that you know for a fact is 100% yours and immune to future tax hikes provides an incredible peace of mind. It's called tax diversification. You might have a traditional 401k that's subject to future rates, but you also have a Roth IRA that is your fortress, safe from the tax man forever. So we're left with two compelling arguments. The traditional argument says, your personal income will fall in retirement, so pay taxes then. The Roth argument says, national tax rates are likely to rise for everyone, so pay taxes now. Both are logical. Both are based on assumptions about a future that no one can predict with certainty. So how in the world do you choose? How do you weigh the guaranteed benefit of a tax deduction today against the potential massive benefit of tax-free income decades from now? How do you decide which bet to make? The answer for most of us is surprisingly simple. You don't make one single bet. You hedge. You play both sides. But you do it strategically. The key isn't to perfectly predict the future. It's to build a financial fortress that can withstand whatever future comes. Let's reframe the question. Instead of asking, will tax rates be higher or lower in 30 years? Let's ask a question you actually can answer. Is my personal income likely to be higher or lower in the future? Think about it. If you're 25 years old, just starting your career, you're probably in the lowest tax bracket you will ever be in for the rest of your working life. Every promotion, every raise, every career move is designed to push you up the income ladder. So for you, paying taxes today at your current low rate is a fantastic deal. It's like locking in the price of gas from 1995 for the rest of your life. In this scenario, the Roth makes almost undeniable sense. You take the small tax hit now while your income is low so that when you're 65, retired, and your investments have grown into a massive nest egg, you can withdraw every single penny tax-free. Now let's flip it. Imagine you're 45 at the absolute peak of your earning years. You're in a high tax bracket. Every dollar you earn is getting taxed heavily. In this situation, the immediate guaranteed tax deduction from a traditional 401k or IRA is incredibly valuable. Shaving $5, $10, even $15,000 off your taxable income can save you thousands of dollars in taxes right now. That's money you can use, save, or invest. For you, the traditional option looks a lot more attractive. You get a significant break today when you need it most, and you'll deal with the taxes in retirement when your income, and therefore your tax bracket, might be lower than it is right now. But here's where the master strategy comes in. It's a concept called tax diversification. You've heard of diversifying your investments, right? You don't put all your money in one stock. You spread it out across different companies, different industries, even different countries. Why? Because you can't predict which one will do best. So you own a piece of everything to lower your risk. You need to apply the exact same logic to your taxes. You shouldn't have all your retirement money in tax-deferred accounts like a traditional 401k, and you shouldn't have it all in tax-free accounts like a Roth IRA. You should have both. Let me paint you a picture. Fast forward to age 72. You're retired. You've got two big buckets of money. Bucket A is your traditional 401k. Bucket B is your Roth IRA. For your normal living expenses, you need to withdraw about $50,000 a year. You can pull this money from your traditional 401k. Yes, you'll pay ordinary income tax on it, but since it's your only income, you'll likely be in a relatively low tax bracket. It's manageable, but then life happens. The roof on your house needs a complete replacement. The estimate is $25,000. Or maybe your grandchild is getting married, and you want to give them a generous gift to start their life. Or perhaps, you and your spouse decide it's finally time for that 2-month cruise through the Mediterranean you've dreamed about for decades. That's a big one-time expense. If all your money was in that traditional 401k, pulling out an extra $25,000 would mean your taxable income for the year jumps from $50,000 to $75,000. That leap could easily push you into a higher tax bracket, meaning not only is the $25,000 taxed, but some of your original $50,000 is now taxed at a higher rate, too. It could also impact your Medicare premiums and the taxability of your Social Security benefits. It creates a tax torpedo that can sink your financial plan for the year. But you were smart. You have Bucket B, your Roth IRA. You can go to that bucket and pull out the entire $25,000, and the tax consequences: zero. Nothing. It doesn't count as income. It doesn't affect your tax bracket. It doesn't mess with your Medicare. It's a financial superpower. It gives you ultimate flexibility. By having both types of accounts, you get to choose each year how much taxable income you want to have. You are in the driver's seat. That's the power of tax diversification. So, how do you build this financially invincible 2-bucket retirement for yourself? It's not complicated. There's a simple, proven order of operations that works for the vast majority of Americans. Step 1, and this is the most important rule of all: contribute to your 401k up to the full employer match. I don't care if it's a traditional 401k or a Roth 401k. If your company offers to match your contributions, you take it. No exceptions. If they match 5%, you contribute 5%. This is not an investment. It is free money. It is an immediate 100% return on your contribution. There is no other investment on planet Earth that can guarantee you that. To not do this is to literally walk past a pile of cash on the sidewalk that has your name on it. Do this first before anything else. Step 2. After you've secured the full match, open a Roth IRA. Why an IRA next instead of just putting more into your 401k? 2 reasons. Investment choice and fees. Your 401k typically gives you a limited menu of 10 to 20 mutual funds to choose from. An IRA, which you can open at any major brokerage, gives you access to the entire universe of investments. Any stock, any bond, any ETF you can imagine. You have total control. IRAs also frequently have lower administrative fees than 401k plans. So, after the match, your next goal is to contribute the annual maximum to your Roth IRA. For 2024, that's $7,000 if you're under 50, and $8,000 if you're 50 or older. Step 3. You've gotten your full 401k match. You've maxed out your Roth IRA for the year. And you still have money you want to save for retirement. First of all, congratulations, you are in an incredible position. Now, you go back to your 401k and you contribute as much as you can, up to the federal maximum. For 2024, that's $23,000 for those under 50, and $30,500 for those 50 and over. By following these 3 steps, you are methodically building both your buckets. You're getting the free money from your employer. You're building a tax-free war chest in your Roth IRA. And you're supercharging your savings in your tax-deferred 401k. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about your life. Every dollar you put into these accounts is you buying back your future time. It's you telling your future self, "Don't worry, I've got you covered." You will have the freedom to choose. The freedom to stop working when you want, not when you have to. The freedom to handle a medical emergency without panic. The freedom to bless your children. The freedom to live with dignity and without fear. We've covered a lot, but it all boils down to this. A 401k is a retirement plan you get through your job. An IRA is one you open on your own. Traditional means you get a tax break now. Roth means you get tax-free money later. The ultimate strategy isn't to pick one, but to use them together. Get the 401k match, then max out a Roth IRA, then go back to the 401k. This knowledge right here is the key. It's the difference between hoping for a good retirement and building one brick by brick, with your own two hands. Don't let the jargon or the choices paralyze you. The single biggest mistake you can make is doing nothing at all. The best time to start was yesterday. The second best time is right now. Open the account. Set up the automatic contribution, even if it's small. Start the process. Because the person you will be in 30 years is completely dependent on the decisions you make today. Make them proud.